There are some criminals who act impulsively, some who lose control for a moment, and then there are predators. Predators who study people. Then they build trust. They hide behind charm. Predators who operate with strategy. They control, they manipulate, and then they strike. When people do the most, I do the analysis. Let's go. When you look closely at the life and actions of Jarvis Butts, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Because this just wasn't about one horrific act. This was a man who checked nearly every behavioral box that experts associate with child sexual predators. A man who appeared to deliberately place himself around vulnerable children. A man who groomed not only kids, but their mothers too. And even in death, Jarvis Butts stayed in control. He took a plea deal to escape the death penalty, caring only about himself. But instead of finally giving answers, instead of sitting down for a confession interview, instead of telling investigators exactly where 12-year-old Naziah Harris's body was hidden, Jarvis Butts chose suicide, caring only about himself. One final act, on his own terms. There is no accountability attached to his actions, no remorse, no closure. So today we're going to break down the disturbing behavioral patterns surrounding Jarvis Butts and compare them to videotape confessions from convicted child predators who openly explained how they selected and groomed their victims. Because the similarities are sharply unsettling. And I want to be very clear from the beginning that this video is not about sensationalism. It's about understanding predator behavior so people can recognize the warning signs before another child, a child you might know, becomes another victim. One of the most dangerous myths about child predators is the idea that they always look suspicious, that they're socially awkward strangers hiding in dark alleys. Children are taught to be afraid of monsters that look like this. But research and countless criminal cases show the exact opposite. Predators intentionally create an image of trustworthiness. They actually look more like this: friendly, relatable, soft-spoken. They appear to be, well, safe. And according to investigators and public reports surrounding Jarvis Butts, he appeared to be embedded with familiar social circles. Let me tell you why that matters so much here. Because child predators rarely begin with the child. They begin with access. And that access usually comes through adults. Especially overwhelmed mothers, struggling families, or environments where boundaries become blurred over time. Many convicted predators have openly admitted this. Listen carefully to how this convicted predator explains how he gains trust first.
Grooming. I would check out their family situation. I would check out their clothing to see how well they were, financially. I would check out their social interaction with other kids.
The similarities to Jarvis Butts are hard to ignore.
I would give them special attention, congratulate them, talk to them when I know that I would never be allowed to talk to anybody else. Aside from everybody, I would give them the attention that an official is not supposed to give anybody. And it made them feel like, wow, he's paying me attention. It is a direct form of grooming.
One of the biggest misconceptions about grooming is that people think it only involves the child. But experts say that predators will groom the entire environment.
Were there certain characteristics that you looked for in children before molesting them?
In children, yes, but more I also looked at their families. If I thought the father was a threat, I would not approach the child.
They groom the mother, the family, even the community in which the child is exposed to.
If I thought that the child had friends that he would tell, I would not approach him.
Perhaps a child that doesn't really have a whole lot of friends, maybe not really a strong family, things like that.
Yes, no spiritual values, weak in education, needs help in many ways, even from split parenting, has a mother who may be having problems with the family, well, here comes superhero in to help out, wow, well, thank you very much. No problem. You ever need me to take them away for the night so you can have a night out? No problem. It works.
The predators make themselves useful. They'll offer a ride so you don't have to spend money on Uber. They'll provide unsolicited help with food, knowing that the cost of groceries is sky high right now. They're helpful with emotional support, knowing that raising a child can be stressful and overwhelming, especially when you're a single mother. And then they help with childcare, not for you, the mother, but for themselves, the predator, the access. Because they don't necessarily care about the child's parent or guardian. They know that every favor builds trust, and trust will lower suspicion. That's what makes grooming so terrifying, because it doesn't feel dangerous. Not at first, at least. It feels more familiar.
It started at about the age of 1. When I was the punisher, I was the one who decided punishment over the children. I was the one who spanked the children. I was the one who punished the children. I would tell myself, well, she's not going to be like that. She is going to be the perfect mate. And I told myself that. And I didn't molest her then.
Perfect mate.
The perfect mate. I was grooming her to fit me.
You see, predators understand human psychology better than people realize.
Then when I molested her at 18 months old, and I thought to myself, I said, well, this is going to be easy. And I'm telling myself these things. It's not blood related to me. When she grows up to be 14, 15 years old, I will have the perfect sexual mate for sexual purposes. Anything else didn't matter. I didn't care about, really, honestly, I didn't love the child. I wanted the child for my own purposes, and treating them like a person, but they were just objects.
They look for instability. They look for things like emotional need, lack of supervision, family stress, and financial hardship. You can't afford that toy? I got you. You can't afford that game subscription? No problem. Not because they want to help, but because vulnerability creates an opportunity for them to worm their way into the child's life. And when you examine the allegations and behavior surrounding Jarvis Butts, that pattern becomes visible. It's not at all random or impulsive. It's strategic, calculated, intentional.
Someone I called that until you did what you did. You did very hurtful things to me. I did put the trouble you caused me. I no longer look at you as a father figure, no longer as a hero, but now I look at you as a monster who caused me trauma and made me look at men different.
Predators rarely choose their victims randomly. They choose children that they believe are easier to isolate. That makes it easier for them to manipulate or silence the child. Then they're able to emotionally control them. And according to behavioral experts, offenders seek out children who crave attention. Maybe it's a middle child who receives less attention at home, or even a child with a lot of other siblings. That child could come from a chaotic home environment and who's easier to bond with emotionally because it's not happening at home. A child looking for approval. Grooming is rarely about force in the beginning. It's more about conditioning, testing boundaries slowly and creating secrecy. Don't tell anybody. And normalizing that inappropriate behavior over time. That's why later on in life, so many victims struggle to explain what happened. Because it's that manipulation that has blurred that child's understanding of what danger feels like. And one of the darkest realities about cases like this is that predators like Jarvis Butts will maintain a double life for years. Yeah, they may appear normal to the public, but privately, they are feeding compulsions that escalate over time. And that escalation is important. Because these offenders don't stop voluntarily. They escalate until they're caught. And in this case of Naziah Harris, tragedy happened. And that's how Jarvis Butts got caught. That's when it finally stopped.
Butts, did you wish to speak?
Mr. Butts is declining to say anything.
All right, very good. Mr. Butts, the offense of homicide, murder, or second degree of Naziah Harris, court is going to sentence you consistent with the sentence agreement, 35 to 60 years. You wish to impart corrections?
Jarvis Butts accepted a plea agreement that allowed him to avoid the death penalty. Plea deals are usually painful for families of victims, but in the case of Jarvis Butts, he had created such a strong support system that even the family of Naziah Harris stood by him to the very end. In court, they cried about how their own life was affected after his arrest. They cried tears of pain and sorrow for themselves, and perhaps even for Jarvis. But where were the tears for Naziah? Prosecutors usually make those kind of deals like the one that Jarvis received for one reason, and that's to recover the victim, to find the body, to give the family something, anything, for closure. And yet, even after securing the deal, investigators still did not receive the one thing that mattered most: the location of Naziah Harris's body. Think about that. Even at the point where Jarvis Butts had nothing left to lose, Jarvis Butts still withheld the truth. That tells you something profound about the amount of control that he possessed. Because withholding information can become its own form of power. And predators are obsessed with power. They have power over victims, over families, even over investigators. Like in this case, predators can have power over the narrative, even from behind bars, even in death. Cases like this force difficult conversations. No, they're not comfortable conversations, but they're necessary. Conversations about adult supervision, boundaries, giving access to your children, about manipulation, and about recognizing what grooming looks like before it escalates to abuse. And perhaps just as important is having conversations about understanding that predators are patient. Very patient. They build relationships slowly while studying weaknesses in the child and the adults who are responsible for protecting them. They exploit trust slowly. They give it as much time as needed before they strike. We all need to learn how to recognize behavior patterns, not just react after tragedy strikes. At the center of all this is a little girl, Naziah Harris. A child who deserved safety, protection, and a future. Instead, she was left with a family that failed her and unanswered questions that may never be resolved. And while Jarvis Butts ultimately chose death over accountability, his final act did not erase the pattern. And it certainly did not erase the devastation that Jarvis Butts left behind. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who can use this message. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and leave a message in the comments letting me know your thoughts. If this case teaches us anything, it's that predators will reveal themselves through patterns long before they reveal themselves through crimes. The question is whether people will recognize those patterns in time. Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.